For years, marketers have been creeping on customers like a drunk ex, tracking their every move, guessing what they want, and pretending it was personalization. But now that game is over. With third-party data circling the drain, brands are scrambling to actually ask people what they want without pissing them off. Enter in-app surveys, the latest Martech trend, I guess, that could either fix personalization or just be another way to annoy customers. I'll let you decide. That's right, good old customer data. The thing marketers can't stop talking about while simultaneously pretending they haven't been stalking users for years. For the longest time, brands have relied on every trick in the book to figure out what their customers want. From buying third-party data that was about as reliable as a drunk fortune teller, to tracking first-party data and hoping their algorithms could guess their way to relevance. But the game is changing. Hi, welcome to Martech Therapy, where we help you see the forest through the trees again. I'm your host, Matthew Niederberger, and today's rant is about collecting zero-party data through in-app and web, of course, messaging features. In case you haven't looked outside for a while, we're entering the age of zero-party data, where brands are finally doing something revolutionary, just asking customers what they want instead of stalking them across the internet. With Amplitude announcing last week that they are jumping into the in-app surveying guide space, it's clear that more companies are waking up to the fact that tracking and inferring just aren't going to cut it anymore. The future of personalization belongs to brands that can collect real voluntary customer input without coming off as desperate, creepy, or worse, both. Now, I could go into the full history of how we got here, but that's a rabbit hole of bad decisions, privacy scandals, and a whole lot of marketers realizing they need a new playbook. Instead, I've got another video that breaks down exactly what the hell third, second, first, and zero-party data actually are, why third-party data is circling the drain, and why zero-party data is the only thing that makes sense in a privacy-first world. So if you need a full breakdown, go check that video out right here. Right now, we're focusing on how brands are actually making this shift, and why in-app messaging is becoming the best way to collect zero-party data without annoying the hell out of customers. Because, let's be honest, most surveys suck. And if brands don't get this right, they're going to drive people away faster than a pop-up ad from 2005. Look, marketers have been playing a game of digital hide-and-seek for as long as I can remember, trying to figure out what customers want without actually asking them. They've relied on tracking pixels, browser cookies, and predictive analytics to make educated guesses about behavior. And for a while, it worked. But now, with privacy laws tightening, third-party cookies on their deathbed, and consumers getting increasingly fed up with being treated like lab rats, brands are being forced to rethink their approach. And that's where zero-party data comes in. Instead of creeping around in the background, collecting bits and pieces of behavioral data and hoping to assemble a coherent picture, brands can just go straight to the source and ask people what they actually want. And you know what? It works. Customers don't mind sharing their preferences when it's done right. If they trust a brand, if they see value in the exchange, they'll tell you what they like, what they don't, and what they expect from their experience. No guessing, no shady tracking, just real actionable data straight from the customer's mouth. But of course, not all brands are getting it right. Some are still fumbling around like teenagers on a first date, either asking too much, too soon, or making their surveys feel like a high-pressure sales pitch. And then you've got companies treating zero-party data like a magic bullet, thinking that just because they ask a few questions, customers will suddenly love them forever. Seriously, guys, it doesn't work like that. This is where in-app messaging comes into play. And when I say app, I also mean web. Let me just be clear about that. Used correctly, it's one of the most powerful tools a brand can have for collecting zero-party data without disrupting the customer experience. But done wrong, it's just another annoyance that customers will swipe away without a second thought like some bad Tinder match. Amplitude jumping into this space is a sign of where things are headed. But they're not alone either, and they're definitely not the first. Companies like Braze, Bloomreach, MoEngage, and Customer.io, just off the top of my head, are already offering similar capabilities, giving brands more ways to collect and act on zero-party data in real time, and integrating that customer input directly into the product experience. And let's be honest, this list of vendors is only going to get longer and longer. Martech moves fast. By the time you're watching this, another company has probably thrown its hat in the ring, promising to revolutionize personalization as we know it. Yeah, don't be careful where you tread. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about how in-app messaging is actually being used to collect zero-party data. And more importantly, how brands can do it without making people want to delete their app out of sheer frustration. If there's one thing customers love, it's being interrupted mid-task with a pop-up survey asking them to rate their experience before they've even had one. Nothing says we value your feedback like shoving a questionnaire in someone's face the second they open the app. And that's exactly the problem. Zero-party data is only as valuable as the way it's collected. If a brand treats it like an afterthought, an annoying pop-up, a long-winded form, or poorly timed nudge, customers will either ignore it or worse, deliberately give useless answers just to make it go away. This is why in-app messaging has become the go-to method for collecting zero-party data. Done well, it's seamless, timely, and actually useful. Instead of disrupting the experience, it enhances it, helping customers get more out of the app while providing brands with insights they couldn't get anywhere else, not even from your parents. But what makes in-app messaging so effective? First, timing. The best surveys don't feel like surveys at all. Instead of dumping a list of questions on a user out of nowhere, they're trigger-based on real interactions. A fitness app, for example, might ask a user about their workout preferences after they completed their first session, not while they're still trying to navigate the interface. A streaming service could ask about genre preference after a user watches a few trailers, not before they've even hit the play button. The point is to make the survey feel like a natural part of the experience, not a barrier to it. Second, relevance. In-app messaging works best when it's asking useful questions that lead to immediate benefits. If a brand asks for a customer's preference, the response needs to actually change something. No one wants to take the time to answer a survey only to be served the same generic content as before. If a shopping app asks a user whether they prefer casual or formal wear, their recommendation should update instantly. If a music app asks about favorite artists, the next playlist should reflect that input. Customers aren't going to give brands free data out of the kindness of their hearts. This isn't some charity. They expect something in return. Third, simplicity. The best in-app surveys are quick, direct, and to the point. No one wants to scroll through a 10-question form just to get to what they were doing. A well-placed multiple-choice question, a quick preference slider, or even a simple yes-no prompt is all it takes to gather meaningful insights without annoying the user. The brands that get this right, again, are going to dominate personalization in the years to come. The ones that don't, well, keep wondering why their surveys have a 0.2% response rate and why their churn rate keeps climbing. Now, before we start thinking zero-party data is the magic fix for everything, let's talk about the mistakes brands make when collecting it. The things that can turn a great idea into just another failed attempt at getting customers to care. Just because you ask your customers for their preferences doesn't mean they're going to give you useful answers. In theory, zero-party data is a win-win. Brands get better insights and customers get a more personalized experience. In practice, plenty of companies are already finding ways to mess it up. The first mistake, forcing it. Customers don't want to feel like they're being interrogated. They're not filling out a tax form. They're just trying to use an app. If a brand is asking 10 different questions before someone can even get started, they've already lost. People don't mind sharing information if it benefits them, but the moment it starts feeling like a chore, they're out. The second mistake, asking the wrong questions at the wrong time. Feels like a twofer. Anyway, zero-party data only works if it's relevant. If an app asks a first-time user to list their top 5 product preferences before they've even browsed the catalog, how are you supposed to know? It's like asking someone their favorite dish at a restaurant they've never been to. The best time to collect useful data is when customers actually have an opinion. After they've made a choice, completed an action, or spent some time in the app. Otherwise, the brand is just fishing for answers that don't mean anything. Then there's the issue of incentivized feedback. A lot of brands try to sweeten the deal by offering rewards in exchange for survey responses. Answer these questions and get 10% off your next purchase. Sounds familiar? Look, it might work in theory, but it creates a new problem, bias. If someone is rushing through a survey just to unlock a discount, they're not giving honest answers. They're just picking the fastest route to the reward. So instead of valuable insights, brands get a bunch of skewed data that doesn't actually reflect what customers think. And then they wonder why their personalized recommendations feel like generic grade A trash. Another classic mistake, collecting data and then doing absolutely nothing with it. This is more common than you'd think. A brand asks a customer about their preferences, customer answers, and then nothing. Zero. Zilch. No changes to recommendations, no tailored experience, just the same generic content as before. Feels like a bad day, right? If a company is going to ask for zero-party data, they need to prove that it actually matters. Otherwise, customers will stop engaging altogether and end up being the one that gets ghosted. And finally, the biggest mistake of them all, drum roll please, assuming zero-party data is a one-time thing. Look, people change. Preferences shift. I mean, what someone liked last year might not be what they like today. Not you, honey. Not you, honey. I'm talking about products, not you. I love you. If a brand collects zero-party data once and then never updates it, they're no better off than if they relied on outdated first-party data or even third-party data. This isn't a set-it-and-forget-it process. It requires ongoing engagement, regular check-ins, and a system that adapts to the customer's evolving needs. The brands that understand this are the ones that will actually make zero-party data work. Are you going to make it work? Because look, the ones that don't, well, they'll keep wondering why their customers are ignoring their surveys and why their personalized experience feel about as personal as mass email. Nobody wants that. Now, let's wrap this up by looking at where all of this is headed. Because if you think the zero-party data war is just about to get started, well, you're absolutely right. Marketing over the years has been built up on one big assumption. If you throw enough data at an algorithm, it will magically figure out what customers want. That's why companies spend billions, if not more, tracking every click, scroll, hesitation, desperately trying to piece together a picture of who their customers were without actually bothering to ask them. Well, that era is over, my friends. It has been for a while. It reminds me of this great quote from the book Lean Analytics by Alistair Kroll and Ben Yoskowitz, published in 2013. First, know your customer. There's no substitute for engaging with customers and users directly. All the numbers in the world can't explain why something is happening. Pick up the phone right now and call a customer, even ones who's disengaged. Look, zero-party data is the only way brands are going to stay relevant in a privacy-first world. The death of third-party cookies is forcing companies to rethink how they personalize experiences. And if they're not already collecting data directly from their customers, they're going to have an employee shouting, "Iceberg, right ahead." Pretty soon, danger is coming. Martech platforms are catching on, and more will soon be claiming they've cracked the code on ethical personalization like they just discovered fire. But let's not pretend this is going to be smooth sailing. Even with all these new tools, plenty of brands will still find ways to mess it up. Some will keep asking the wrong questions at the wrong time. Others will collect zero-party data and then completely ignore it, acting surprised when customers stop engaging. And of course, there will always be the companies that refuse to let go of the past, desperately clinging to tracking pixels and fingerprinting as if regulators aren't watching their every move. The reality is, customers are willing to share their data if they get something valuable in return. If a brand can prove that answering a 1-second in-app survey leads to real personalization, customers will play along. But if brands keep treating zero-party data like just another box to check, they might as well just not bother. So the question isn't whether zero-party data is the future, it's whether brands are actually smart enough to use it properly. Some will get it right, most won't, but the ones that do, they're about to leave everyone else in the dust. And again, if you or anyone ever needs help with using any of these in-app messaging and survey features from these brands like Braze, Bloomreach, Customer.io, MoEngage, there are so many. Make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's talk. See you next time.